Hey, it's me, Colin, your beloved co-host of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. I wanted to take a moment to thank you for downloading our show and for supporting us. If you like what we do, consider telling a friend or leaving us a nice review on a podcast service of your choice. And if you really like us, like really, venture on over to Patreon and subscribe to Colin's Last Stand. Doing so gains you access to the weekly Sacred Symbols supplemental podcast we call Sacred Symbols Plus. And you can also get ad-free access to every standard episode of the show, like the one you're listening to right now, 3 days earlier than the public. Other perks include submitting your inquiries and thoughts to be used on the show, and you can even determine some of the games we record Let's Plays for. I'll be frank, Colin's Last Stand's Patreon is a bonanza of value. And hey, we have merch too, so check it out at tinyurl.com/sacredshirts. So consider showing your support if you can or even want to. But hey, if you want to just keep listening like you are right now, that's cool too. We love you either way. Enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 64, like Nintendo 64.
Yeah, look at that.
The console that was outsold 3-1 by PlayStation. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by the Xbox playing Chris Raygun.
Yeah, it's me.
How are you?
I've been doing all right.
Yeah.
Not bad.
You hanging in there?
Yeah, traffic's fun.
Yeah, you sat in traffic today as you usually do.
Yeah, today was bad though. There's a lot of trucks for some reason, which is like my least favorite vehicle to be around.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If we
What if I said no? What if I said no?
Yeah, no, let's just move on. No, don't ask me the question. I'm kind of, and I put this out there to the audience, I'm kind of thinking about moving, and we would do the show remotely if that was the case, which I think would be fine. I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Would that kind of make you happy to do it that way? Because you wouldn't have to sit in arguably, an hour and a half or 2 hours of combined traffic every week. You can just roll in, sit in front of the microphone, we do the show, and you can be fucking naked for all I know or all I care. You know,
there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be a definite plus, not to sit in stupid traffic.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I can't, I don't even, we've talked about in the past, I don't even leave Santa Monica because it's so complicated. Yeah. You know, it's just so complicated.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
You know, I barely leave Burbank, and that's far less complicated.
No, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been thinking about kind of taking a sojourn back east to be with my family. My mom turns 69 years old today.
My goodness.
We're recording this. And, you know, so there are no spring chickens. And
yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of, you know, maybe I got to kind of go back and re-ingratiate myself with the Moriarty clan. Since they barely know me anymore. You know? It's like when you go home, they're all really close to each other, both in proximity and obviously as a family. And I feel like I go home and then I'm kind of like the star of the show when I'm there. Like everyone's kind of working their way around me. Like we're going to go to Aunt and Uncle's house for dinner today. And then we're going to go to Mom's the next day.
Yeah, you make the tour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm not really there. And I wonder like what it would be like if I just moved there.
Then
they'd all hate me probably.
No,
right?
they would just persistently think less and less of you.
Right, until I just
until you're just not really invited to all that many things anymore.
Right. Because I've gotten the get out of jail free card with like the, you know, the random communion or something like that. I can't travel across the country for that.
Yeah,
you know? But now I have no excuses. Oh, it's you know, Barry down the street's retirement party. We're all going to go to that. I was like, now I got to go to this.
Now you got to go.
Listen, I'm already complaining about it.
I wouldn't have gone to my own communion if I had a choice.
It was pretty rough. I remember my communion actually, which is weird. You know the felt thing that you build and it says your name on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you put like different, like the host and like the different...
Oh my God.
I still have that in my closet. Yeah, mine is like magenta. It says Colin across it diagonally, and then it has like a host and like a wine glass on it or some shit. Some grapes. I don't really know what's going on in there.
That just makes me upset.
Everything well in your life, though, otherwise?
Yeah.
Yeah? Everything
getting a lot of work done. Very busy.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to announce, Chris, that you're going to start doing more solo Let's Plays, or you're going to just start doing them for the channel. And I'm super excited about that. So we're going to start with Borderlands 3 this week. I feel like by dividing and conquering, sometimes we'll still do Let's Plays together. We're going to do River City Girls still together, for instance. But this allows us to divide and conquer and I think tackle more games and give more perspective on more games. Because I think we have like the fan votes every week or every month that we facilitate, but we don't really get to go deep on as many games as I would like. So by dividing and allowing you to do some and me to do some by myself in addition to the ones we do by ourselves, it'll give our fans more to enjoy.
Yeah, I think it was fun. It was fun putting it together.
You enjoy? Yeah, you did like a proper edit for it, which I don't usually.
Yeah, it's not super huge or anything, but
right.
like it's something.
Fair enough. Well, Chris, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, as always, on Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. Remember to support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand for early ad-free access to every episode of the show and exclusive access to our brand new supplemental podcast, Sacred Symbols Plus. Last week's Sacred Symbols Plus was all about Control, the Remedy and 505 Games game. We're going to talk about that in a little while because the MPDs came out. Not good news for Control, actually. And as I promised, every spoiler cast will eventually go free for all, so we'll put that up on the feed in the coming weeks as well if you want to be a freeloader. But come join us for Sacred Symbols Plus. This week's is going to be another mailbag. We're going to dive into some stuff about Doom. We're going to dive into some stuff about game pricing and all of the rest. So come join us there if you'd like. We really do appreciate your patronage. Dead silence right there. No response at all from Chris. Still no response from Chris. Jacob Bell wrote into us, Chris, on Patreon. Remember, of course, another perk on Patreon is that you can submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas. He said, hey, fellers, curious about one thing around your Control breakdown, which was great content, by the way. Thank you. I agree. You both pined for more battle sequences in the game because it seemed like you thought the combat was the best part of Control. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, 100%.
You even went so far as to wish for a horde mode. But just a few minutes later, you talked about how you almost completely skipped over the randomly occurring pop-up missions that allow you to have, wait for it, more combat. How do you reconcile this, Chris?
Well, I mean, it's because when you're playing Control the first time, you're going through this kind of captivating story and you're just like kind of like enthralled with what's going on. And then this notification blaring and just kind of pulling you out of it. So you have to go to this other section of the map that you haven't been to in ages to then play through a combat section that may or may not occur even. Like I talked about, I think I mentioned in the podcast that I would go do the missions and I would go to the area and no enemies would spawn. And I would just wait for the clock to time out, and then I would get the credit for finishing the mission. I was like, well, I'm just not gonna do these then.
Right.
If there's like a 50% chance that they won't happen.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you. That was one of the most frustrating things about Control for me too, was when I was grinding out some of the trophies, the combat trophies, and doing some of these side quests. You don't really know what you're gonna get. It's a weird game. The more I think about it, the more I really...
It just tears you out. Like that specific part of it just tears you out of the flow of the game. Indeed. And it's really awkward.
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge that from Mr. Bell.
Yeah.
And just remind everyone again that we did a really deep dive on Control. We did the best we could. We did get some feedback. This one guy wrote to me on Twitter saying, like, it's not that complicated. I don't think you got... he wasn't really crazy about the spoiler cast. I'm like, I don't know, man. I feel like that's a little bit of a... I'm bragging because I understand this thing that you don't understand. And I appreciate that. Yeah. I appreciate that. But I don't know that anyone really understands Control.
Yeah.
Chris... The Game Awards.
That's right.
I think this is the 5th annual Game Awards. These are happening on December 12th, hosted by Jeff Keighley, very nice guy. I think it's here in Los Angeles. Just wanted to remind everyone in case you care. How do you feel about the Game Awards?
They're fine. I like them. I was really happy with the last one because they announced Crash Team Racing at it.
That's right.
I had a whole video flipping out about it.
That's right.
It was fun. I like them. I think they're fine. I think Jeff Keighley's super cool. I like him.
He's a nice guy.
I think I met him once at like a YouTube thing or PAX thing. He was super nice.
He's very friendly. In the times I've interacted with him, he's been very friendly. I'm not crazy about the Game Awards simply because I feel like they're another example of the games industry trying to be the movie industry, and I don't like that. I don't feel like we need award shows like this, and we already have award shows like that are like BAFTAs and DICE and all these kinds of things. So I don't know that we need another one, but I appreciate that it's kind of a gathering for late year announcements and celebrations going into the Christmas season.
Because there's nothing really that happens at the end of the year. It's usually just like all the games are out already. So it's kind of nice to just end the year with something to look forward to.
Indeed. Maybe you'll be trending gamer this year. How do you feel about that?
God.
Trending gamer.
You know what? You can keep it.
Yeah. People were joking that they were going to nominate me like a year or two ago for trending gamer. And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to be a dickhead. But if I win trending gamer or even nominated for them, I'm not going to go. So it's going to be this awkward thing where they're going to, you know, how they have like they announce like the 5 people at Oscars that are going to win, but one of them's not there. So the camera just stays on the one person for two beats instead of one. I can't be trending gamer, but I would never win that anyway. There's no way. John Carl wrote into us. Now, John Carl is actually our representative over at Studio 71, the guys that sell our ads for us. Oh. And he said, just a general comment. I left one right after the Macaulay Culkin comment was read and an ad break hit. There was an ad for his podcast playing. It's pretty meta.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The universe is a comedian.
It is.
Evidently.
Not unlike the comedian that Saturday Night Live that was hired and then fired in a few days.
Yeah, that's right. Did you see his response?
Yeah, that he was a Mad TV fan. He was
like, I'm
fan?
a Mad TV anyway. I thought that was kind of funny.
Who wasn't a Mad TV fan? I loved Mad TV. But John, you're absolutely right. That is very funny. Very coincidental. I'm perfectly pleased to have Macaulay Culkin advertising on our show.
Can you imagine we're going to both die in a car crash and he's going to replace us, both of us.
I would love that. I would love if Macaulay Culkin took the show over. I would give it to him. If that was going to be a thing that would happen, I would allow that to happen, even if we weren't dead.
Yeah, here it is.
And by the way, since John, we were talking about John and ads and stuff, I did get some feedback that some people on the free feeds were getting too many ads this last week. I did send that up to our reps or whatever. Keep that feedback coming and let us know. But the best place to get in touch with me is on Patreon, and you don't have to be a member. You just have to have an account. I just see those messages. And so if you have any problems, always let me know. We always want to make the show as fluid and fun for you to listen to as possible. Although ads are a reality, and that's why I try to write my ads and make them funny so that you guys stick around and enjoy them.
It's the best way to go about it.
I agree. I said in the past, I actually said to my ad reps, like, there are some ad reads on podcasts that I listen to that are fucking atrocious. Like, if I were the person buying the ad, I would be like, this is completely unacceptable. I was listening to the National Review podcast, which I really like. It's called The Editors. And they just like flub their ads. This is so disrespectful, actually, to the advertiser in a way. Mm-hmm. It's weird. So I try to make mine, a little weird, a little fun. We talk about Chernobyl sometimes. Sometimes we talk about me being naked, rubbing things on myself.
Now this is starting to sound worse, actually, the more you get into it.
That's fair enough. Chris Azan wrote into us and said, hello, Colin and Chris. My question for this week, why does Pewdiepie matter in the gaming community, and why is he newsworthy in the industry? Pewdiepie has been making a lot of news again lately. Pewdiepie, of course, the great
consistently
YouTuber, 100 million subscribers now on YouTuber.
That's insane, by the way.
That is crazy. I mean, I don't think that translates necessarily into views per subscriber.
Absolutely, especially because he's been around for so long. Right. Like, probably a good majority of those people are probably either gone or literally dead.
Yeah, they could have died.
I don't know. He's just the biggest person on the platform, so people pay attention to him. That's literally all it comes down to. If it was anybody else, it would be that person making headlines for doing literally anything. Yeah,
for better or for worse, I think it's he's a part of the conversation. I actually, there's a relationship, Chris, between the more I see and hear about PewDiePie and then my annoyance of PewDiePie, actually. Yeah. Just in the sense of, like, weird shit happening, like where he keeps getting in his own way, and unfortunately, and ruining stuff for some people, because he's like at the top of he's the apex, right? He's the apex predator. So when something affects him, then it has this trickle down effect for everyone else. This is where the adpocalypse on YouTube and stuff came from. Mm-hmm. But in his video about, I think he gave money to the Anti-Defamation League and then took that back or whatever.
Yeah,
he released a video, but on his turtleneck, he had this symbol that's like some symbol for something totally innocuous, but it looked like an iron cross.
Yeah.
And which is a symbol that's most associated with Nazism. And I'm not saying PewDiePie's a Nazi. What I'm saying is like, why would you wear that in a video where people are going to look at that and be like, even though it's not that, it looks like it.
I think
there's no one around you that's like, hey, why don't we act a little more normally?
It's just him, though. I think that's what it is. It's like literally it's just him and like his editors. That's it. And I think he's just so not tuned into that kind of area of conversation, despite the fact that he's been a subject of it. I just don't think he understands the iconography of that stuff. He doesn't know that much about history. Neither do I, really.
Right.
So that doesn't necessarily shock me. I do think it's weird that people are paying. Like, I remember immediately they were like, he took money back from what is it?
ADL, Anti-Defamation League, I believe.
Yeah, but they didn't say that. They framed it like a Jewish defense thing, like or some
anti-Semitism or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like the ADL isn't great, guys. Like, it's not the best.
No, it's not. And they were really one of the groups that were responsible for going after different people. So I understand why he withdrew, but he's just, if I were that rich and I were that famous and popular, I would definitely be nailed down a little bit better on the details of everything I was doing. I would be surrounded with, not surrounded because I don't like people, but I would have a few people, Chris, that would check me and be like, hey, listen, we know that iconography on it has nothing to do with it, but that looks like this, and you should probably not wear that in this video.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You need a little bit of feedback like that sometimes in your life, Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes you walked in once when we were recording a video and you were wearing a huge swastika on your chest. And I was like, Chris, you can't wear a huge swastika on your chest in this video.
Yeah,
because you're going to give people the wrong idea.
Yeah, it was an awkward day,
So you wore and you're actually wearing the same shirt you were wearing in that video, which is the Skyrim shirt instead. I was like, this is a little bit better than wearing a huge Nazi swastika on your shirt.
Yeah.
Do that in your own time. Cutter Crow wrote into us, Chris, and said, hey, Colin and Chris, how much is too much? Do you feel like with all the preview coverage of Death Stranding that too much has been shown? Do you think Sony is happy that with the way this game is shaping up? Keep on keeping on. We have to talk about Death Stranding, Chris, because while there isn't news per se about it, at Tokyo Game Show, which ended last week, they showed an extensive gameplay session in Japanese
Yeah,
of
what
the
is it,
game.
like 50 minutes or something?
Yeah, about 50 minutes of gameplay. Now, I will say this. I got so bored. Well, I don't understand Japanese, first of all. But I got so bored I was falling asleep about 15 seconds into the video that I started scrubbing through it. And it was so funny. I actually almost wanted to start writing down the things like every 5 minutes that I was encountering. I just like scrubbed forward and he's just playing a harmonica on a hill. I scrubbed like 10 minutes forward and he's spraying some shit on the baby. Like, so I'm like, what is this? So anyway, the big thing about Death Stranding that I realized, Chris, and I think this is being overstated a little bit, a lot of people, now I'm not saying a plurality, but a lot of people are like, what the fuck is this? And the more they show of it, the more they're like, It to me, it doesn't look very good. I'm just going to throw that out there. It doesn't look like a very good game.
It is a baffling thing, to say the least. It looks like a hiking game. It looks like a game where you play as Norman Reedus and you hike with a baby across America.
Well,
and
and
there's like fights, I guess, with extra dimensional shadow people, but you just kind of wrap them up. It's weird. It's very strange. I don't really know. There seems to be a lot of like heavy rain-ish controls with like, L2 to lean left and like, like stuff like that. And it's like, I don't really know what this is. But it's a game that doesn't seem to focus on combat.
That's true. And we can talk about that. I like that.
No killing as far as I've seen. I think you beat people up and then you wrap them up.
He definitely took a Windex bottle and started spraying that baby. I saw that.
He also drinks a Monster Energy drink at some point, like actually for real, like verbatim.
Nice. Got to get that. Sony's really hurting apparently, so they need to get that extra money for a game that's going to sell just millions of copies based on Kojima's name alone. Seems a little weird. I don't like those advertisements in games. If I were a really wealthy person, I wouldn't, and I was making all this money on Patreon, I wouldn't put ads in the show at some point. Enough's enough, right?
I think, what's funny?
Maybe not.
I thought about this a while ago, and it's like, I think I would if it was like a Grand Theft Auto type game and it was a city with like billboards and shit, just to sell the world a little bit. Because it seems like it would almost make sense. I remember seeing a billboard in like Grand Theft Auto 4 or whatever, and it was like, that's very clearly referencing something way old. And it felt like kind of like, oh, weird. But yeah, it definitely felt weird seeing a Monster Energy drink in Norman Reedus's inventory.
Listen, I'm not optimistic about this game.
He's got a ladder, though, that extends forever.
That's great.
Which is pretty sick.
It's very... that's a metaphor, I think, for the possibilities of life. The ladder goes in every direction, all cardinal directions, and then weird directions like southeast, right? It's like, well, I don't know. It's a little too specific for me, but if the ladder goes in that direction, I guess I'll climb down it, I guess, because it's south. I have no idea what I'm fucking saying. But I'm not optimistic about this game. I'm just going to throw it out there. I could be wrong about it. I'm sure it'll be fine, and Kojima has fanboys the world over that are going to love it. It just doesn't look very good, and I don't know why they've overexposed the game to this extent. There's a skull man in the West Wing. He's got like a skull mask on. There's this woman. They're talking about America. There's
very
a
Windex
bottle. I don't understand.
A lot of melodrama in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking at it and I can't help but think like this could potentially be like super immersive and strangely relaxing, but also I'm bored to tears watching it. Maybe I'll play it and I'll be like, oh, there's something here that I didn't see when I was watching the gameplay. That's happened before. The Shadow of the Colossus was one of those games where I watched it and I was like, what the hell is this? And then I played it and it was like, oh, okay. I get it now. But I don't know, man. This is weird, man. This is a strange game, to say the least.
It is, and it seems quick, too, to come to market. I just wanted to reiterate that. I just think it's been made very quickly. I don't understand how they made the game so quickly. And Kojima needs more than 3 years or so, I think. I remember back in 2016 and even in 2017, I think they said they were still messing with Decima and didn't really understand. I just don't understand how this happened so quickly. But footage was in Japanese. The people were talking in Japanese. They could have been saying anything. I mean, they literally could have been saying, this is where you go behind a rock and you fuck someone. And I would have been like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting part of the game, but I didn't hear that because they weren't speaking English, right? The menus could have had things where it's like you select this and you get $100 in free PSN money, but I don't know if
there's
that's
a lot of information that's lost in the language barrier.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Both in text and in voice.
But there haven't been enough games that have bored me to death, so hopefully that this will be another game that bores me to death. I hope it's great.
Maybe this will be the one that kills me.
Medieval, I got to be honest, out of the 3, let's say, exclusive games coming out this fall, Chris, Death Stranding, Medieval, and Concrete Genie, Medieval is like the one that I care the most about. I got to be honest.
It's definitely the one that I care about the most, but that's because I know what I'm getting,
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it much more than Death Stranding. I'm sorry. There's so many people that are going to be angry at me for this, but
even if you're a fan of like what you're seeing, you have to acknowledge the reality of the fact that this is very clearly not for everyone.
No.
You got to know that.
No, you have to. You absolutely have to. I agree with you. Chris, before we get into the games we're playing, and we're going to do it right this time. I'm not going to like let you do the games you're playing and then I'm going to just randomly throw it into the news like I did last week because I'm a fucking idiot. Phil Crone wrote in, Chris, and said, hello, Hermit Colin and Krabby Chris. That's fair.
I guess.
Help me with the following paradox. Now, this is an interesting one. I'm going to give this to Phil. This isn't actually one of the bad ones. This is an interesting one.
Okay.
If it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno, right? That's the saying. And if I buy a DiGiorno pizza from Amazon, what the hell is going to show up on my doorstep in 1 to 2 days? This is actually an interesting problem with Amazon Fresh, with Amazon Pantry. DiGiorno specifically advertises itself as it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. But it's going to be delivered to your house.
You know what's strange about that slogan is that delivery is great.
Yes. But isn't
so like why
but wait, aren't they saying it's not it's confused for it's so good that people are confusing it for delivery?
Oh,
That's
I guess
what they're saying.
Yeah.
Well, in other words, you could present the pizza in a box and people are like, "Oh, this is so great." And you're like, "It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno, you fucking idiot." You know, that's what they wanted to say in the commercial.
I guess so. That comes across better when you said it that way.
There are a lot of F-bombs out there today.
But I think that's dumb. I think it's still delivery at that point, right? Because you've just got it delivered. Anything that's delivered is delivery.
So it is delivery and it is DiGiorno. See, that's the advertisement that they should do they should do an Amazon Pantry DiGiorno commercial combination where they should say it is delivery, it's DiGiorno.
It's not delivery, it's delivery. Be great.
And then everyone has a stroke. Chris, let's talk about the games we're playing. Before we get into Borderlands 3, which we're obviously playing a great deal of, I want to just talk about a couple games that I didn't really give much credit to last week. It's one is specifically, I mentioned just briefly, River City Girls, published by Arc System Works and made by Way Forward. I beat the game last week, and I probably should have talked about it a little more. We want to do a Let's Play for it, which we'll do and I think publish next week. I know I wanted to do that sooner, but we kind of got distracted with some other stuff. But hey, I really recommend this game. I really think this game might be a little overpriced. I think it's $29.99. It might even be $39.99, which I think is a little expensive. I feel like this is a $19.99 or $24.99 game, but it's very well made. Have you gotten a chance to play this game at all?
I have not. I have it. It's installed.
Do you like brawlers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, River City Girls is based on the River City Ransom, or I think it's called Kunio-kun in Japan, which was this old Technos series of brawlers that were kind of brawler RPGs, quite ahead of their time indeed. And there was an NES game / Famicom game called River City Ransom that was really the first of its kind in that way that we got in the West. And this is basically a continuation where the protagonists of River City Ransom are kidnapped and their girlfriends go and try to find them. It's really, really funny.
That's cool.
And they're schoolgirls, and they're really like wily and crude, and they beat the shit out of people. And I love the you know how there's like a loading logo in games when it's loading up a new thing? The logo is of them punching each other in the face. It's awesome. It's super awesome. It's just a really cute game, really well made. Way Forward is just a really, really masterclass studio of old school romps, and I highly recommend this game. So I just wanted to throw that out there. River City Girls is excellent. And the other game I played is this game called Blasphemous. And I don't know if you've seen this before.
I saw footage of it somewhere on my Twitter feed.
It's excellent. Now,
it looks good.
I should take that back. It looks excellent. It's like a Catholic Spanish. It's made by a Spanish studio, I believe, littered in Catholic, oozing in weird Roman Catholic imagery. And I find Catholicism and Christianity generally, when combined with horror, exceptionally scary. So, you know, upside down crosses and all this weird shit and the undead.
That's what was so good about Castlevania, that anime.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the Netflix anime Chris is referring to, which is I think comes back soon.
Yeah.
And so I want to recommend it just from an aesthetic standpoint. I think it's a little clunky with its gameplay. And I don't know. I guess I'm really becoming very old and very specific with the way I want games to play.
Yeah.
And I want the game to feel quicker. I want it to feel like Strider or something like that, where it's moving kinetically.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the 2014 Strider open world game that people, I think, played.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. So it's cool. I know that Sophia, my writer for SideQuest, beat it and she really enjoyed it, but it looks like a nice little Castlevania type romp. So I wanted to throw that out there for people as well. But Chris, the big game that we need to talk about is Borderlands 3.
Yeah, we've both been playing it, right?
Yeah, I'm curious what you think of it.
I like it. It's more Borderlands, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do think it's clunky in the sense that the UI is a mess. I hate the UI like with all my heart.
It's bad.
It's worse than any previous Borderlands game. It's slower. It's like flashy and animated where it just does not need to be. And that's the main thing that's really bothering me. Everything else I think is pretty damn good. I think it plays way better than Borderlands 2. I was playing Borderlands 2 actually last night because I'm trying to get my roommates into it so he can get Borderlands 3 and we can play. And I got so used to sliding and doing like all the like clambering and like, oh yeah, I forgot I couldn't do that in the last one. But it plays better. I think the gunplay is cooler. I think the guns have far more character to them. I definitely found myself becoming attached to more weapons this time in the short time that I've been playing than I have in previous games. So I like it. I think it's solid. I wish it ran a little bit better, but
yeah, it doesn't run
I think
great.
I think it can. They could probably patch that.
Now, ironically, and I want to, you know what, before we even move forward, this question ties in, so I guess I should read it. Trent Sinning wrote into us. And that's a great last name, by the way. Sinning? Sinning. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Said, hey guys, could you give any insight into the strange Borderlands 3 review situation? Kotaku put out an article saying how all reviewers were given really early work in progress builds rather than the version that would closely resemble the product available at release. Reviewers were apparently even warned by 2K that the build of the game is a work in progress and they may experience some issues. This story didn't seem to get that much coverage, but I was just wondering if it's common practice for reviewers to be given earlier work in progress builds like this, since the situation sounds out of the ordinary. So no, first of all, that's not common. And I wanted to read that to start this conversation, Chris, specifically because of this situation where big outlets like Kotaku and Polygon, I think, and others, like, were not given access to the game. So I was like, there is no way we're getting Borderlands 3. So I pre-ordered it, right? I was like, fine, fuck it, I'll pre-order it. And then, you know, I got a little countdown clock on my cross-media bar. And then I got a code. And I was like, what? We got a code for this? So then I gave it to Chris, which is fine. But I just wanted to say that there was a weird catch-22. I don't know exactly what was going on with the review copies of the game because they didn't seem too concerned about us having it. But I guess others having the game, I don't really know. The review situation for it was a little weird, though. It was a little perplexing. Did you see any of this stuff where basically only certain outlets got access to it, only on the Epic Game Store in an early build that 2K was very explicit saying that the game's going to change. They even said that the saves might not carry over. That's how old the build was that apparently they dispatched.
That's kind of crazy.
To the reviewers, and you can kind of see why in playing the game. I have not played it on PC, but on PS4 Pro, it doesn't run exceptionally well. You get to choose your textures or your frame rate. I'm sure Chris chose frame rate. I chose textures. And to me, I was a little confused by the way the game ran, but big picture, I guess it kind of makes sense. They weren't really ready for prime time yet. Yeah. You're right, though, man. The UI sucks. And I know that this is such a common... I actually made fun of myself on Twitter. Such a common complaint of mine now.
It's a common complaint of mine, too. I don't know what the hell's going on. I think all the UI designers from the previous generation left because they've all gotten worse.
They must have gone to more lucrative projects or something on
they're probably
apps.
Designing websites and apps now because there's no... I don't know what the hell, man. There's no need for a UI to have a flashy animation that's going to tank the frame rate and then take ages to... I hate this thing now that's a modern thing with modern games, that when you go into the UI or you go into like your inventory and you look at like a gun or something or an item, there's a loading bar for where the image is, or like for skins and stuff. It's like, this never used to happen. Why is this new when the tech is so much better? Why are things loading in the menu?
It's very confusing. Yeah, no, it's true. This really started, my complaint with this started with God of War.
Yeah.
And, well, it didn't start there, but that was the big outlier to me where I'm like, why is God of War so good except for the UI and the map and the quick travel system? Why is it all bad except for the gameplay, which matters? This just seems to be a trend. Quick travel sucks. The map sucks. The UI sucks. How many Control was the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm no genius. You know, Chris, I'm no genius. I don't know if you know that about me. And I could really sit down with some of these people for like an hour and at the end when the game's about to go gold and be like, listen, this is unacceptable. This menu is unacceptable. The way it's loading is unacceptable. Yeah. The map's unacceptable. The maps does some peculiar ass thing. I don't know if you noticed this, where the best example is, you know, when you ever been in an Uber and pay attention to the guy's phone and the guy's phone points north, or rather up the direction he's going, so the map is constantly moving instead of just north is north, so you go left. Like I never understood how people read the map like that. The map in this game does that, where it's just constantly turning. Like, you go into the map to try to get into a good direction, you point the carrot to where you're going and just check, and then the map is just in a different, it's in a different direction now.
Yeah, it follows you. It's very odd.
There's just weird things like that where I'm like, why?
I don't necessarily mind that so much as just like how strange. Like, I remember being really confused by the fast travel. Like, there's something about, like, the menus and, like, how... Because there's a spaceship in the game. It's, like, it's called a sanctuary, and it's in orbit.
A hub world.
Yeah, it's a hub world.
We needed another one of those.
Borderlands is kind of hub worlds anyway, so it's not as jarring in this one. But you use the ship to fast travel now, whereas previously, in previous Borderlands games, you could go to any fast travel station and fast travel to any point on the map because it was all Pandora. But now it's you go to the ship... And then, like, sometimes the waypoint will take you to the fast travel thing, even though you have to go to, like, a different place to fast. It's a little... It's a mess in some ways. I like playing it, but anytime I have to interact with my inventory, which is a lot of Borderlands, by the way. A lot of Borderlands is inventory management, is, you know, marking items as junk, or, like, going through and making sure you have enough space. So, you know, there's a good portion of the experience that's very slow and very frustrating to take part in.
I think that I actually just wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. I'm going to name this episode Boredomlands because have you noticed that the pacing is really weird in the game?
The pacing is strange, yeah.
Now, I said this online too, and some people took umbrage with it, but Borderlands, if there was anything about Borderlands, Chris, that I think you and I can agree with in terms of its kinetic gameplay, is that it never got in the way. Like, it just let you play the game. It didn't really try to solidify anything into the world. The world was there for you to explore. The characters were there for you to explore, but it didn't put it in your face. You wanted to shoot and kill shit, right? Get your loot and all that kind of stuff. There's a really peculiar thing in Borderlands 3 where you play it for a few hours. Then you go to the hub world in space, and then the game just stops letting you play it for a while. Like, you have to start running around, getting quests, fetch quests, all this weird shit. You're not shooting your gun. I don't think I shot for like an hour or so at that point when you're running around. Yeah. I'm like, why are you doing this? The game started to get going. And to Chris's point, I think that it gets a little too cute by half with the hub world, and then you have to like leave Pandora to go to these other planets, which is cool, but...
Oh, it's really cool.
But there's so many different levels to why I think this game is worse than Borderlands 2 in a lot of different ways. And
yeah,
I think that the game tries to be too much of what it wants to be, but I don't think what the audience wants it to be. The audience wants an open world, frantic shooter with a world that's there to explore if you want it. But instead, the game tries to be an open world role-playing game. And I think that that's the difference. And what I mean by that in a literal sense is you're constantly meeting characters. You're constantly in these conversations. You're constantly being dragged all around and doing all this kind of stuff where I'm like, I don't feel like this feels like a Borderlands game. And the writing is so bad in this game, by the way, that I can't, like, it's noticeable that someone else wrote this, not Anthony Birch and those guys. It's noticeable that Claptrap's voice is different. It's noticeable that when I thought the writing was bad, I went and looked around. I'm like, does anyone care about this? It's a big problem, apparently, where everyone's like, this game's writing is really bad. And
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like it's just as bad as it's always been. Like, I feel like Borderlands has always been kind of terrible on that front. That's kind of what the point of it is, almost, to me. Where it's like, oh yeah, this is really obnoxious and annoying, isn't it? Borderlands 2 is especially annoying. Like, I love that game. That game's obviously, I think, better than this. I think Borderlands 3 is definitely closer to Borderlands 2, but Borderlands 2 is obviously way better. It's better than the first one. It's better than the pre-sequel, as far as I know. I haven't really played much of it.
Yeah, the pre-sequel I really didn't like very much.
Yeah, but, you know, I think it's really close to being a really great Borderlands game. I just think, I honestly think if the UI just worked, I feel like I would be enjoying myself way more. But the fact that the UI is getting in my way so much is making me pay attention to all the little things that I don't like. I don't like that these writers have come up with, like, situations that they think are funny that they make me watch. The game stops so that you can listen to a conversation. It's like, all right, like I wouldn't mind this if I could at least manage my inventory while this was going on in a way that didn't tank my eyes, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's peculiar. The design structure of the little things, again, is a miss. Again. And I just don't understand how you make a game so fun again and so, you know, so satisfying to play and just load it down with bullshit. That's so necessary. I mean, you're always in your menus. You're always in the maps. And these are the things that should work.
Yeah, and it's a compliment to the game because I just want to play it more. Like, I like it. It's really good, I think. But, you know, just let me play the damn thing.
I think it's good. I think that's as comfortable as I'm willing to go right now. I think, I mean, I think I'm on a level 13. I'm level 13, 14, something like that. Maybe 15. And what class are you?
Oh, I'm the Siren. I always go for the Sirens.
I don't remember. I'm the British guy with the sentry bot that flies around.
The
I don't remember
British
his
guy.
exact-
The Irish guy.
The Irish. I'm sorry, Irish.
Yeah.
Oh. Sorry about that.
Or the Scottish. I don't
You're
know,
all sound the same. It
hell.
doesn't matter.
But I did. I'm doing a second playthrough with him, or I did one for the Let's Play with Zane.
Zane.
And I like the way they all play so far. Like I love the siren. They've always been just cool. There's something about magic shit that's really fun in anything. Yeah, I mean the skill trees are also like a bit like here's 20% this and like 40% that. And I'm like I don't know what this means really. You know
what a weird thing is actually, Chris, that the menu does as well? It brings you into that like prestige mode or whatever they call it. Why, like the far right side of the menu.
The Guardian rank or
whatever. Like
something?
when you beat it, you unlock all the stuff. Why is that there right now? See, like if I didn't beat the game, that should be a thing that pops. This is just another thing like in the UI where it's like that doesn't need to be there at all.
There's
right
also
now.
like fake emails that you get in your if you open up the social tab in your pause menu, that you get like fake emails for like codes to redeem or something like that. Or at least that's what it looked like, but it's like that's the social thing for like real life.
Yeah,
that's like out of the game. Like why are fake emails in this? I don't know. I feel like honestly, and I mean this with there's no exaggeration when I say this. I have zero experience building UIs. I can confidently say that I can make a better UI by myself in Unity or Blender or whatever the hell you use to make UIs. Point me in the direction and I can make a better UI than the majority of video games have currently. I'm so sure of that.
It's weird.
I can.
No, I'm sure you can too. I think the big philosophy that has to underpin all menus, all UI, is just basic functionality. Nothing like I've said it in the past. When I pause a game, why is there music playing? It's one of those things like why? Why is there music playing when I pause the game? It's these little things like that. Like it almost makes you. I almost want to be director for a day and be like, no.
The game should stop.
Right.
And the menu should be quick to use.
Yes. It's very frustrating. That's why I don't know that I love this game. Actually, I know I don't love it. I'm open to loving it.
I like it a lot. But Borderlands 2 is without a doubt better, more tight. I don't know if it necessarily plays better, but it runs way better, which makes it a far more enjoyable experience. It comes close, I think, to Borderlands 2, but it just needs some work right now.
Chris does not endorse the title of this episode, Boredomlands. He does not endorse that title.
I like the title. I think it's good.
Now, the other thing I have to say is that...
Snorterlands. He snorted.
That was unintentional, but serendipitous nonetheless. The other thing I want to say is that Borderlands 2 came out in 2012, so I think the big thing about this is that this game is about 4 years too late. That's the other thing I want to say. I just don't know how it's going to carry its weight in this.
I said that in the Let's Play. I was like, I don't know if it needed this long to really come out, because I think I said it plays just a little bit worse than Destiny does.
Yeah, exactly. And Destiny came out in 2014, so Borderlands... Gearbox tried to get cute for a while and be like, we don't really need Borderlands. We're going to make all these other games, none of which hit, including that. What was that fucking shooter? That hero shooter.
I don't know.
Made.
Whatever.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it anymore. So Battleborn. There it is. That's the one with the mushroom man and all that kind of stuff.
I don't remember anything about it.
So I think that if they just got this out a little sooner, and I know that they didn't even start developing it until later, so it's not like it was in development hell or anything, but if they got this thing out in a more appropriate fashion in, say, 2015, 2016, I think that the game, even as it is, would have been just a much more bigger quantum leap. But now that you have a lot of persistent shooters like this, I don't know that this really... if I were at Epic, if I were at Bungie, I'd be like, I'm not worried about this game at all.
I don't know if I'd be worried about it, but I do think... I don't know if anybody who was looking forward to this would necessarily be disappointed. You know what I mean? It's more of the same, just like slightly worse, but still better than pre-sequel in the first one, I think. So, take that for what it is.
Who do you trust more, Chris or I? You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. Corey Mitz wrote into us, Chris. He said, how's it going, fellas? It's going well, thank you. Since I know Colin has stated multiple times he hates a certain two-word combination frequently used to describe Borderlands, he's talking about looter shooter, which I fucking hate. I suggest an alternative. Jumble the words together completely and just use schluter.
Wow.
I hate that even more.
That's looter shooter is fine.
No.
You're crazy.
I hate that.
Why? It's what it is.
I don't like it.
We're going to get Ben Shapiro in here to teach you about like facts over feelings, dude.
Did you see that Ben Shapiro I saw was trending today because there's these new allegations about Justice Kavanaugh when he was at Yale.
And he was like, no one's described his penis in great detail.
Ben Shapiro, man, might be, I don't want to say he's swirling around the toilet bowl, but we might be getting to that point.
He has fascinating takes.
He's,
I'll put it that way.
I tried listening to his podcast for a while because I try to listen to all sorts of different political podcasts just to get some different perspectives. And I think I actually agree with Ben Shapiro on quite a bit, but I just find him annoying. Just find him.
He's irritating.
I find him irritating.
I don't really agree with him on anything, and he's irritating. So
that's the double whammy.
Yeah, so
that's the looter to your shooter right there.
Yeah, there you go.
We all put on underwear every day, unless you're one of those going commando weirdos who likes his or her jeans rubbing against their grundle. To each his own, of course, but I'm personally afraid of snagging my bits in the zipper and the sheer chaos that would undoubtedly ensue thereafter. Yet, for all of the heartache our undergarments save us from, few people think about underwear as much as I do. And not in the perverted sense, you creep, but rather because I work from home and very rarely put on pants. And I mean rarely. So when MeUndies snuck into my life via the US Postal Service, I kind of fell in love. The fabrics are high quality, they fit wonderfully, and their various prints are incredibly hip, just like me. I know you might be screaming at your phone right now as this podcast plays, yelling, "But Colin, I can just buy underwear at Nordstrom Rack." And yeah, that's true, you can do that, but don't you know that requires you to leave the house? No one in their right mind wants to go outside. Instead, you can browse MeUndies on your phone or computer to find what you're looking for. Whether you're a man or a woman, looking for boxers or a boy shorts, or perhaps even some socks and so-called loungewear, which might be appealing to some of you, but to reiterate, I don't get dressed very often. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of MeUndies, and I think you will be too. And of course, there's only one way to find out for sure. Try a pair for yourself. Go to MeUndies.com/symbols and get 15% off your first pair of briefs, panties, or whatever else MeUndies offers that covers your nether region. You can even get free shipping, and MeUndies stands behind all of its products with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, no one knows underwear like me, and MeUndies has you covered. Buy a pair, experience the luxury, and commit yourself to a pantsless reality like I have, or simply wear your pants over them. It's your choice. Again, that's MeUndies.com/symbols, MEUNDIES.com/SYMBOLS. Chris, let's get into the news.
Let's do it.
Number 1, GameStop's demise seems to be continuing unabated. Unfortunate news for its many employees to whom we wish the very best. According to Games Industry International, GameStop revealed during an earnings call that it will be closing between 180 and 200 stores around the world by the end of the year, leaving a still very large number behind. 5,500 stores will remain open. 95% of GameStop stores are actually in the black, according to GameStop's CFO, James Bell. But in order to close the financial gap the company is reeling from, even more stores will need to be closed through 2021, though a number wasn't specified. However, it doesn't look good, with the CFO saying in part, quote, "While these closures were more opportunistic," he's talking about these closures now, "we are applying a more definitive analytic approach, including profit levels and sales transferability, that we expect will yield a much larger tranche of closures over the coming 12 to 24 months," end quote. In other words, expect big closures. So GameStop is slowly dying. Now, did you see the video that leaked a day or two ago? It didn't really leak.
No.
It was posted to so there's a local GameStop that has their own Facebook page, and they took a video of the new store. People should go look at this. I saw it at IGN, but I'm sure others are picking it up as well, where it's basically like in the back, if I can describe it to everyone, in the back of the store, they have that rectangular space, and then in the back of the store is like a table in the middle with chairs around it where I assume people can play board games and card games. And then surrounding that are CRTs, where there's like N64s and GameCubes and NESs and shit hooked up where you can play. And then they have like these screens on the wall where you can order things from GameStop.com. On the walls, they have all their games. And then in the middle, they have like shirts folded up as if you're in like Express or Gap or something. So like nicer than on hangers and stuff. It looks cool. I don't think it's enough, but they're trying to basically make it like a hangout.
Yeah. They should have done that years ago, honestly. That would have been my advice as a fucking college student to them. So.
Before you got fired from GameStop.
Yeah. Did I tell you that? I worked there for a week?
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, it's cool. I barely got to work there. I went to training and that was it, and then they fired me immediately.
Well, and then you got to work at Sears.
Yeah, how great.
So
yeah, yay.
You like Sears.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sear my fucking ears off.
Whoa. Number 2. At Tokyo Game Show 2019, Square Enix showed off Final Fantasy VII Remake yet again, and this time a new, quite important feature was shown off, Classic Mode. Final Fantasy VII Remake is markedly different from 1997's original Final Fantasy VII in that it's not a menu-based, turn-based RPG with active elements. Instead, it's largely an action RPG with some menu-driven elements, which was concerning to some fans even though it looks awesome. Classic mode essentially removes player concern over action and lets combat occur via menu. According to Final Fantasy VII Remake's official Twitter account, quote, in standard modes, the ATB, that's action time battle gauge, fills up by repeatedly attacking your enemy. But in classic mode, this aspect of gameplay is handled automatically. The player does not need to do anything, and the character fights automatically, charging up their ATB gauge. So anyone playing Final Fantasy VII Remake in classic mode doesn't have to worry about the action side of the combat system, and can instead focus on selecting commands, making it possible to play as if it were a classic menu-based RPG, end quote. Final Fantasy VII Remake's first portion, which covers Midgar, is set to release on PS4 and elsewhere on March 3rd of next year. Max Davis wrote in and said, Final Fantasy VII Remake producers confirmed it will have a turn-based classic mode that will play like the original. Obviously, more choice is good, but in your personal opinion, what is the best JRPG battle mode? ATB, turn-based on characters, team turns, all your characters go, then the boss goes, etc. That's kind of like Phantasy Star. Thanks, and keep Tuesdays great. So before we get into that, Chris, did you see this news? Because this
I did, yeah.
How do you feel about this? Because I got to be honest with you. This surprised me in the sense where I'm like, the way they're doing it with the action looked so good and convinced me so much that they had the right direction in doing this that I was like, why are you doing this now?
Yeah.
Like you almost sold me on this and now you've confused me again. So what do you think?
I mean, I think it's just a matter of choice. I think having more ways to play the same game is pretty cool, but I do wonder like what the point of it is. It seems like a lot of work for something that, again, I doubt is going to be finished. So,
and Chris means the entire Saga.
The entire story, yeah. I know this one's coming out, but man, I don't know. I did think like the stuff that they showed last time looked really cool. Like it almost enticed me. Like, oh, maybe I might actually do this and play this damn thing. Because it's been so long since I played Final Fantasy VII, but this is a weird take.
I agree. On
design.
Excuse me, I got a little burp there.
Yeah, gross.
Now, I agree with you that it's cool to give players options. We were talking about this last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. It's Death Stranding in very easy mode. As long as it doesn't take a lot of resources from the game itself. This is the old multiplayer versus single player thing where it's like our resources being taken from one for the other and stuff. I think that this implementation is typically pretty easy, but this actually seems like a different, you have to go through the game now and balance it differently for these players.
Yeah, it's an entirely rebalanced game
at
that point. And it's like, oh, that's weird.
I don't like it because if anything, they should have revealed it in the other direction. You know what I'm saying? In other words, they should have said, we're doing it in the classic ATB style. Oh, and then the surprise should have been, or you can play like an action, or you can play like Devil May Cry, basically.
Yeah, that would have been a better way of rolling out that information. Without a doubt.
Because it was like the reverse thing for me where I'm like, oh, you sold me. Like I was totally wrong. Now I don't know. I haven't played it, but I was totally wrong about Final Fantasy VII Remake in terms of its viability. Its viability and its attractiveness, let's say.
Yeah.
And this was a weird one where I'm like, you sold me and then you kind of unsold me a little bit because why would you do this if you believed in the system you had? And it didn't seem like that many people were complaining, surprisingly.
I don't think anybody really.
So I don't know. I'll be interested to see how this goes.
I don't know if I don't not like it. It just seems weird to do. I'll put it that way.
Indeed. Yeah, it just gives them more work. But I'm excited to play it. It comes out March 3rd, 2020. I'm excited. Max, to your question, he asks, and Chris can't really answer this, I don't think, because he's not a JRPG guy, but there are different options. I do like the Phantasy Star style, like your team goes, the boss goes, your team goes, your boss goes. I like even putting I think Phantasy Star is the one where you actually have to commit to all of the moves before any of them are executed. So it's like you're giving your party all of their commands so you can't like take anything back, which is kind of neat. But I like speed-based, turn-based battles like Dragon Quest. In other words, back and forth, but based on your speed command. So sometimes you might go twice in a row or the boss might go twice in a row or whatever. ATB is nice. That started with Final Fantasy IV, which added an active element to battle. But I like menu-based, turn-based things where you can think. You can look at things and kind of structure. Like, what's really the rush? Why is a game so passive suddenly need to be active in a battle? That's a little bit confusing to me. That I don't understand. Number 3, Remedy Entertainment, the developer behind the recently released action shooter Control, has officially revealed what was already rumored and mined from the PC version of the game, that single-player DLC content for Control is incoming, along with some other notable updates. Now, people had written in saying that there was some confirmation because of the season pass that this was coming, so fair enough. For starters, a photo mode is incoming, which will come to the game for free this fall. This is becoming an increasingly common feature of AAA games, so no surprise there. Are you a photo mode guy? I don't really understand it, to be honest. I don't really get it.
I fuck around with it in Spider-Man a lot. Because Spider-Man, I still come back to just to like swing around because it is so strangely relaxing. And I didn't think I would. I thought I'd be like, I'm done with it. But every now and then it's like, oh, I want to swing around. And then I will just kind of use it just to kind of admire the models, because some of those models are really good. But beyond that, I don't know. I feel like I was spoiled by stuff like Halo 3 and Uncharted 2 with the way that they had like theater modes. And even some of the earlier Call of Duties in the 2010s, 2011, 2012 area had like a theater mode where you could fly around the map and just sort of record stuff. And the photo mode seems a bit bizarre to me as like a gimmick. I feel like a theater mode would be way cooler because people could make shit in it as opposed to just taking photos. But
like machinima.
Yeah, it's cool. It's whatever. I'm not gonna complain about it being implemented for sure.
I gotta give credit where credit is due. Sony's really the one that started the photo mode trend. I want to say I mean, it might have been in other games, but Horizon was really the first game, as I recall, that really emphasized it.
It's definitely an evolution of the theater mode.
Yeah,
which is weird because I don't know. It feels like a devolution in a lot of ways. But you know, it's a thing.
All right, so the photo mode's coming. That's free. And then in December, Remedy also intends on adding a new mode called Expeditions, which is, quote, an endgame mode in which Jesse must help Security Chief Urish explore the mysterious formation and its strange surroundings. Formation, of course, is a proper noun in Control, end quote. This will also be free. However, in 2020, the bulk of Control's DLC support will be coming, and they will be paid. One expansion is called The Foundation. The other is called AWE. Quote, both of these will offer new story missions, enemies, and game mechanics, and take place in new locations within the oldest house, end quote. Here's the thing about these DLC packs. This is the conundrum, Chris, that I find myself in.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot in my mind about Mass Effect. I think it's Mass Effect 2, but it could have been Mass Effect 3 that had day one DLC that really like got people fucking incensed.
That sounds like 3.
They were incensed over it. I remember very well. Yeah, I guess I don't remember that well because I can't remember the game. But I kind of like the idea of having, if not day one DLC that's available really quickly, because I'm not going to give a flying fuck about Control by the time this DLC comes out. And that's a problem. Like, I know that they must be getting positive reception back on these things, but that's a long time away. And I actually think Insomniac and what they did with Spider-Man is a little more reasonable, where they got that DLC out with the Black Widow or whatever pretty quick. I just don't understand what is in it for you to release season pass DLC so late. And I understand that they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, because if the stuff's ready to go quickly, then people are going to be like, well, why wasn't it in the game? And this is where I think the consumer needs to be more educated, patient, and understanding that just because something exists in that world doesn't mean it needs to be shoehorned into the game. And that it might be nice for people that want to explore more of Control to have been able to pay $10 or $20 more and had this DLC available sooner, even if it would have caused some sort of PR nightmare. I think gamers are getting a little too entitled in this sense, scaring people away from having things too close to launch, because then they're going to be blamed for not having put them in the game themselves. That's the only reason that this stuff is so far off, I think, is because they don't want to have that confusion. A different team at Insomniac was working on Spider-Man's DLC, so they were able to have that kind of going in sequence, but that's not a luxury that a lot of teams are able to have. Does this make sense to you, my complaint?
Yeah, but I also think that from what I played of the Spider-Man DLC, it was just kind of fine. It wasn't like, I don't remember any of it, actually. Like, I remember the suits that came out with it, and I almost prefer that we didn't have any DLC, and a lot of those story threads that were explored in the DLC were just kind of the introduction of the next game, because I felt like they were just kind of done kind of unceremoniously and kind of, you know, paint by the numbers. Just because, again, it was such a quick turnaround, and it was so soon after launch that it couldn't really be anything greater than the original game that you just finished. So it almost felt like it felt a little bit like Red Dead to me, where like Red Dead ended on such a high note, and then you kind of plateau into John's thing, and it's like, oh well, all right, it's cool that there's more here,
right? But
it also feels a little bit weird to come down from where I just was.
Yeah, you're right. It is a balance and pacing issue for sure.
I do think now, though, because we install our shit, people are going to be far less interested in downloading DLC for stuff that they've uninstalled way before. That they're going to be like, oh, now I got to download 60 gigs of this just to play this. And I do think that's something that people aren't really necessarily thinking about at these meetings. But I don't know. I'm interested to see what the hell I'm sure I'll be interested in Control again when they do it. But yeah, I'm kind of done, you know?
Exactly. I think most players are now.
Put a horde mode in. Put a horde mode in, please.
That would be nice. Now, they must have some data that suggests that maybe this is a good way of going about it. My only thought about it could be, is it a way to convince people, like, you drop the price to $39.99 or $29.99 for the game, And then is that a way for you to like convince people to play the game? But then to play the DLC, you need to familiarize yourself with the game. So you would have probably already played it earlier. I just think that like your best bet is to have the shit ready to go as soon as possible. I really do believe that like within 30 days release the DLC, the first pack of DLC. You know, like, I like that idea a lot more.
Or do what they did with Alan Wake and just make it like a standalone.
With American Nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be cool.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We're going to talk a little. I don't know if it's the next story. Let me look at my notes here. It's not the next story, but we're going to be talking about them again soon. Number 4, the eagerly anticipated follow-up to Team Ninja's surprise 2017 hit Nioh, that's Nioh, conveniently called Nioh 2, finally has a release window as well as specific dates for its upcoming open beta, according to publisher Tecmo Koei. The open beta will run on PS4 from November 1st through November 10th later this year. As for a release window, Tecmo Koei is aiming for early 2020. A specific date may be determined by what's revealed in the beta and what may need to be fixed. Nioh's at the, or I don't want to say at, but near the top of my list of games I need to get back to because I really liked it. It just came out at a weird time. I think it came out right around the time I quit Kind of Funny, so I was all, dealing with other shit, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside. But I liked what I played of it, and it's more my speed. Remember, we were talking about how I wasn't really into Sekiro because of the way it played, but Nioh played a little bit more the way I need these games to play, me, personally.
Right.
Are you excited about Nioh 2?
No.
You didn't play the first Nioh?
I didn't play the first one.
That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't... I guess I just wasn't really aware of it. It just kind of flew under my radar when it came out. And then I guess by the time I learned about it, it had been so long that I was like, maybe I'll get around to it when it's like free or something.
Sure.
But when's this supposed to be coming out?
Early 2020 with a beta in November.
Okay, so that's probably like March or February.
You have time. I mean, if you wanted it seems like a nice November or December game, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Or January. Although games are coming out in January as well. But I'm excited about it.
It's weird that it has a beta.
I think
Isn't
the
it
original
a single player game? Isn't it a single player?
I think it is, but I want to say that the original Nioh did too. Which I think is kind of
it's cool.
I'm reaching back into my memory banks. I feel like we talked about, well, not you and I, but like in the industry, people were talking about Nioh, the beta or the alpha for Nioh, as really just a backdoor demo, which I think is real, like a demo in which you can give feedback on. It's kind of clever. I don't know if they're doing that the same thing. I don't know if there's online functionality, but I think it's a single player game. I think so.
All right.
We'll see what happens. So yeah, it's basically a demo you can play early, which I think it's nice. Number 5, in a conversation with Games Industry International, that's the second time they've been cited today. Ubisoft's CEO, Yves Guillemot, essentially confirmed that his publisher will pretty much only be creating large, expansive open worlds moving forward. When asked about the most recent Assassin's Creed game, Odyssey, and its extensive game time when compared to a 15-hour main adventure like Assassin's Creed Unity, as an example, the website inquired if Ubisoft would ever return to something smaller and more manageable in scale. Guillemot responded, no. This is his quote, no. Our goal is to make sure you can have a Unity within an Odyssey. If you want to have a story of 15 hours, you can have it, but you can also have other stories. You live in that world and you pursue what you want to pursue. You have an experience, many Unity-like experiences, ellipsis. It's sustainable, and so the next question was, how is this level of development sustainable? These are huge games. It's sustainable because the world is big and the number of players that can play our games is immense. What we've seen in the last few years is the number of players that play our games is constantly growing. New markets are opening up and games are a lot longer than before. So at the moment, we see that we can continue to increase the investment because we know we can have a return on investment that can be quite long-tailed. End quote. Tom Barber wrote into us on Patreon and said, greetings, Colin and Chris. I've been a big fan of Assassin's Creed since the series began, but lately I don't like the direction the series has been taking. With Origins and Odyssey, the games have been turned into massively bloated RPGs, with the elements that got me into the series to begin with either heavily de-emphasized or gone entirely. I've always held out hope that we would eventually get a game that goes back to the series' roots, namely social stealth and sprawling urban environments to parkour through. However, recent comments from Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot suggest that nothing is changing anytime soon. I think I'm at the point where I just can't enjoy the series anymore, which is a first for me. And he goes on to ask a question, but I really want to just use that comment. Mm-hmm. What do you make of this? When I read this, I was really staggered by Mr. Guillemot's honesty and candor. He basically was flat out said, no, we are not making those kinds of games anymore. We are making massive open world role-playing games, period. And you even saw that with Steep and shit like that, which is a snowboarding game as far as I understand. So what do you think?
I mean, these particular Assassin's Creed games are selling pretty well, right? And they're relatively well reviewed and well received. it just seems to me like maybe some people who started off with the series are just kind of done with it, and that's fine. You know, it's pretty normal for a series to just kind of taper off for some people. But in this case, it seems like they're making the right decision, just not for the people who played it in the beginning. You know, because it'd be one thing if they changed the way the games worked, or they changed like, oh, hey, Assassin's Creed is an open world RPG now, and then they lost sales on it, or fewer people were playing it. But it seems to be the opposite. So I don't know what to tell you, man.
I felt like the sustainability question that was asked in the article was weird, simply because it seemed to me to be more unsustainable to have 3 teams making Assassin's Creed games at once.
No, 100%,
which is what they used to be doing. And then they would have Syndicate and all these games, and Unity and all these games come out, Black Flag. And that seemed more unsustainable than saying, like, let's have 1 or 2 teams each take 4 or 5 years building these games out. See, with Odyssey, I didn't play it, but I was so impressed with that update they had where you can go online onto a browser and make your own side quests and make your own choice-based side quests with your own dialogue and everything. I'm like, these guys, I must say, Yves Guillemot's not a dummy, and I think Ubisoft is on to something with this.
Yeah.
And so it might not be the game I want to play. When I read about Odyssey, I was really overwhelmed just by reading about it, where I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, 100%.
But it sounds like Watch Dogs is going to be very similar, Watch Dogs 3 or Watch Dogs Legion, and some other stuff. What do they have? That Gods and Monsters game coming out. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think that they're probably on to something. It's certainly going to work for them fiscally. And looking at the back end and seeing numbers of people just continuing to play a game signals to them that they don't need to make these smaller games anymore. And I would make the same decision if I were there. So,
and I mean, also just Assassin's Creed has been such a weird series, because I thought the first one was just kind of fine. And then the second one was great. And then I liked Brotherhood. And then like everything after that until this most recent one was just kind of floundering, okay, or just forgettable. So it seems to me like almost like a Simpsons scenario where it's been bad for longer than it's been good necessarily, but it feels like they're finally getting good. So I mean, I don't know, man.
They found their footing,
yeah.
I think. Remember that there's only been, I think, 2 years since 2007 in which an Assassin's Creed mainline game did not come out. Like an Assassin, I don't want to say mainline because that's not true. Brotherhood's not a mainline game, but a proper Assassin's Creed game in some respect didn't come out. I think, what was it, like 2008 was one of them, and I think 2015 or something was the other. So
the year after the first one came out,
exactly.
was the 1 year.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. I know that it's such a mixed series, but I don't judge it because I'm such a huge fan of Far Cry that I would love to get a Far Cry game that never ended. Basically, that would be awesome.
I do hear his complaint though, in the sense that it came at the expense of a stealth game, which there are very few of now. And I hear that, I guess. But I just never thought Assassin's Creed was particularly that good of a stealth game.
No, the gameplay wasn't
in my
good.
opinion.
That's what jarred me about it. That's why I didn't like it.
Yeah, I was like, this is a stealth game, but like I'd rather just play, you know, Splinter Cell or even Hitman, you know? I don't know. Hitman.
Number 6, this one's for Chris. If you're a JRPG fan like I am, there's some good news for you. For starters, Romancing Saga 3, which was revealed back at E3 this past June, that was my game of E3, as you guys remember, finally has a Western release date. The game will come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita on November 11th. Thank you, Square Enix. It was released on Super Famicom in 1995 and is the 6th game in the so-called Saga franchise, which also includes the Final Fantasy Legend 1, 2, and 3 on Game Boy, which I played for some reason when I was a kid. Released in the early 90s, the original Romancing Saga, which came to Super Famicom in 1992, and Romancing Saga 2, which came to both PS4 and Vita in 2017. Additionally, Star Ocean First Departure R, a re-release of the PSP remake of Super Famicom's Star Ocean. Do you understand that, Chris?
I'm keeping up.
Will be coming to PS4 on December 5th. And finally, Koei Tecmo is bringing the Atelier Dusk Trilogy Deluxe Pack to PS4 at some point in the near future, which is a combination of Atelier Aisha, the Alchemist of Dusk, Atelier Aksha and Logi, Alchemists of the Dusk Sky, and Atelier Shali, Alchemists of the Dusk Sea, all in DX form, which is the special form. The 3 games came to PS3 in 2012, 2013, and 2014, respectively. There are so many of those games.
Yeah.
Gust is making those games, in case you're curious. We were just talking about Gust last week. Number 7, are you a fan of the Netflix series Narcos? Are you?
No, I've never seen it.
It's supposed to be good. I've never seen it.
Yeah,
either.
I heard it was good.
Then you'll be pleased to know that a Narcos game is en route to PS4.
Okay.
Vaguely announced last year, Narcos Rise of the Cartels is a tactical turn-based action-adventure game,
oh my
according
God.
to the title's official website, and is being published by Curve Digital, with British developer Kuju leading the charge on the game's creation. Kuju is a 20-year-old studio with lots of contract and collaborative work under its belt, including on Sony-owned IP like SingStar and iToy, and more recently with work in the Zumba, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and even Pokemon series. There isn't a specific release date yet, though the game's newest trailer claims a vague fall 2019 launch. The Narcos universe launched with the aforementioned Netflix franchise beginning in 2015, which ran 3 seasons and ended in 2017. A follow-up Netflix series called Narcos Mexico premiered in 2018, with the second season expected as soon as this fall, perhaps right alongside the game. So I think that's kind of neat that Netflix is starting to farm this stuff out and wasn't, by the way, scared off from its experience with Telltale and some others that haven't delivered. Remember, Netflix was getting into bed with Telltale to make a Stranger Things game.
That's right.
And so it's cool that they've not been scared off, although I am a little concerned about the partners that they're choosing because Netflix has immense amount of money. They just spent, did you see $500 million to get Seinfeld?
I did see
starting
that,
in 2021. Yeah. So $500 million. That's 10 The Last of Us's budgets. Yeah. So I would like to see them spend money in a more marketable way, get in bed with a AAA team. I like Curve Digital. In fact, I knew those guys when they were really small, like 2 people. They're a really nice team of publishers, but you can do better than this. So I'll leave an open mind, but I don't know. I don't understand why if you're going to do it, you don't just do it right. Go get a team that makes turn-based RPGs and make one.
Yeah.
Spend the money. Or don't do it at all.
Exactly.
Number 8, not surprisingly, Capcom's Monster Hunter World Iceborne expansion is already a massive commercial success. The game, which was launched on September 6th, has already reached 2.5 million in games shipped, indicating that the games aren't necessarily sold through yet, but will be shortly. This isn't a shock simply because the core game, Monster Hunter World, has surpassed 13 million units sold since its launch in January of 2018, making it the best-selling game in publisher Capcom's 4-decade history. So it seems like Iceborne is a commercial success, and we congratulate our friends at Capcom for that. Number 9, the MPD Group has revealed the best-selling games in the United States for the month of August 2019. These sales typically encompass both retail and digital sales across all platforms, with some exceptions, particularly with Nintendo games. Madden NFL 20 was the best-selling game in the US in August, with Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, Fire Emblem, 3 Houses, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate rounding out the top 5. Other notable games include Mortal Kombat 11 at 8, Spider-Man at 11, and The Dark Pictures Man of Medan at 19. 9 of the top 20 games are Nintendo Switch exclusives, including numbers 4 through 7 on the list. If you reduce the list to just PS4 game sales, Madden NFL 20 was the best-selling game of the month, followed by Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, Spider-Man, and Call of Duty Black Ops 4. PS4 exclusives Days Gone and MLB 19 The Show came in at numbers 8 and 9. Mortal Kombat 11 is the best-selling game overall in the US for the year so far, with Kingdom Hearts 3, Madden NFL 20, The Division 2, and Anthem rounding out the top 5. Reading between the lines, however, it seems the games market is softening, and that a new generation might be more anticipated than expected. U.S. game sales reached a 20-year low in August, with an 18% year-over-year drop, according to Push Square. That is staggeringly bad news, by the way, and something that I've not been seeing reported to breathlessly. A 20-year low for the month in game sales means since 1999, there hasn't been a month this week. For game sales.
I wonder if that probably has a lot to do, though, with a lot of the subscriptions.
Probably.
A lot to do with Game Pass, a lot to do with PS Plus, a lot to do with, whatever the hell Epic Games is doing.
Yeah, digital sales are counted, but we do not know how they're counting. This is actually a problem with Gears right now, because Gears' numbers are horrible. If any of you have seen the sales numbers, they're bad. Mm-hmm. But it's like 85,000 in the first week in Britain or something, which is really bad. And people are like, well, now we have no way to properly judge these numbers, because if I were a Games Pass guy, I wouldn't have bought Gears. I just would have played it on Game Pass, and that's not counted as a sale. Right. So how do we know how games are proliferating?
It's really interesting because Gears had, I think, 3 million players or something.
And it didn't sell 3 million copies. That's for sure. So
it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Definitely a new kind of realm that we're getting into here.
It's funny because NPD and others, Chris, Media Create in Japan and others that count these numbers, really thought that they had revolutionized and finally gotten over the hurdle, because the big hurdle was they didn't count digital sales until a couple of years ago, so we had no real idea what was actually selling. Then they finally got that going, except for with Nintendo games. And so now they have this other hurdle to clear, which is like, well, now maybe the big answer is how many people are playing the games every month, not how many people are buying them, because that's not necessarily relevant anymore. Yeah. When a game like Gears has 3 million players, Gears sold nothing compared to that number. So I just wonder like what the long-term gain is, and if Microsoft will be able to weather the optical storm of Gears probably not even charting in the top 10 next month, which is bad, But
I think I know what it is. I think the idea is to get it in as many homes as possible for a very, very low price. And then people, just like the Fortnite people, they'll like spend money on stupid, skins and stuff, and then they'll make ridiculous amounts of money on just the people playing the game buying skins.
Definitely, and also
I think that's literally like a strategy going forward.
And Games Pass also costs money, so it's not like they're just giving the games away for free. I would assume it's something like, I don't watch Hulu very often, but my Hulu account just keeps charging me every month.
Exactly.
Probably Games Pass shit like that going on too.
100%.
So we'll see how that all. What do I want to say? How that all turns out? I guess I'll say. Turd Ferguson wrote into us. He said, "Hey guys, MPD came out this past week and Control didn't even chart in the top 20. Yes, it came out on August 27th, but Astral Chain and Man of Medan came out on August 30th, and they're both in the top 20. What is it with Remedy and their games? They just don't seem to sell that well. Even when they had the support of Microsoft's marketing, their games never lit up the sales chart. If Sony was thinking about acquiring them, would this latest commercial underperformance make them think twice? I think so. And by the way, I noticed that immediately. I actually got an email from someone pointing it out too. I'm like, where the fuck is Control? Man of Medan's on this fucking list.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable. That game sold more copies and made more money, grossed more money than Control. And they only did it in one day. Control had 4 days actually to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad news, dude. Control did not sell well, it turns out.
Yeah.
By the way, those numbers are in the worst selling month in 20 years. So Control...
Yeah, that probably contributes.
That might be a bomb. I don't know for sure, but that might be a bomb.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel like Remedy's never really sold super well. Even Alan Wake, that was an exclusive, and I remember being like, I didn't play that until like 6 years afterwards when it was on Steam.
I find this peculiar, personally. Control seemed to have some buzz behind it.
I saw no buzz behind Control. Literally zero. No marketing either.
I guess it explains why 505 got involved as publisher, because I was confused. I'm like, how did a publisher like 505 get attached to this game? That just seems like a game too big for them.
Mm.
Now,
we'll see.
Man of Medan fucking outsold them. So, yeah. Number 10. Anthem's front-end sales may be excellent. It's the 5th best-selling game in the United States in 2019 so far, but it's clearly failing to keep players interested or engaged. Thus, publisher Electronic Arts has opted to put the core game on the EA Access subscription plan, which essentially lets you play Anthem for free, minus a small monthly fee. This could be a shrewd move on EA's part, however, with the possibility of hooking some new players that will in turn boost its future prospects and sell some DLC too. The likelihood of that happening is dim, but EA sees the long-term numbers and it's not looking good. So this was a big thing as well. Anthem has no business being on EA Access if actually people played it. So yeah, this is a way to bolster numbers in anticipation of the DLC, I assume. I don't think it's going to work.
No, I don't think so either.
Again, 5th best-selling game of the year. So what do we know?
Yeah.
Finally, Chris, number 11 is a wrap-up. Website Push Square reports that adventure game Close to the Sun is coming to PS4 on October 29th. Website Gamatsu reports that Warriors Orochi 4 Ultimate will be coming to Western PS4s in February of 2020, that horror RPG Omori is coming to PS4 in the spring of 2020, and that VR game Last Labyrinth is coming to PSVR on November 13th. The PlayStation blog has revealed that action RPG Dragon Ball Z Kakarot will launch on PlayStation 4 early in 2020 on January 17th. Website Polygon reports that Rage 2 is getting its first expansion pack on September 26th called Rise of the Ghosts, which adds new content and more. How do you feel about this Dragon Ball Z game? This seems like something up your alley. I think you're wearing a Dragon Ball Z hat right now.
I am. Yeah, I don't really know. I loved Fighters. I thought Fighters was a really solid... That's Arc System Works, so of course it is. Of course it's going to be a good fighting game. But yeah, I don't know. An RPG... based on a story that I've played through like a million times. I don't know.
It's like the same story, right? Dragon Ball Z ended like 30 years ago.
It's a fighting game. It's just a fighting game based on an anime. So you're just kind of playing through the same story with like different fighting mechanics every time, which is enjoyable. But like, I don't know. I haven't played a game aside from Fighters. I think the last game that I played and enjoyed was like, I think it was called Budokai Tenkaichi 2, which is like a PlayStation 2 game in like 2005 or 2006 or something like that. I don't know. I might give it a shot, maybe. Because it does look kind of neat, but I don't know if I don't really know if I can go through the same story again. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Like Dragon Ball, that story is just the story, right? Like it's like 25 or 30 years ended.
Yeah,
isn't it? So in other words, they have not made a new Dragon Ball or anything like that.
Well, they have, but like they did Super recently.
Oh, okay.
But this isn't Super. This is Dragon Ball Z because that's the most well-known part of the property. It's like the most well-known saga in that series.
So the games keep going back to the same story and just mining it in different ways, I guess, right?
Yeah, basically. And it's not necessarily terrible. I mean, it's like you come to expect that from anything that follows the plot line of anything like that. Like anime games are always like that. But I just don't understand how an RPG, which is all about choice and like deviating paths can follow the structure of a show. You know what I mean? Unless it's entirely what ifs, which could be kind of cool. But I don't know.
Well, you'll find out.
Maybe I'll
Chris,
check it out
on January 17th, 2020. Let's get into the new game releases. As tradition dictates, Chris will go first.
Alrighty. AI, the Somnium Files comes to PS4 in a near future Tokyo. Special Agent Kaname Date, I assume that's how that's said, is on the case of a mysterious serial killer. Date must investigate crime scenes as well as dreams on the hunt for clues. Hone your detective skills in this thrilling sci-fi murder mystery with 30 plus hours of gameplay and multiple endings.
Okay. It could be Date as well. I don't know.
I thought Kaname Date sounded a bit too like ate.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It sounded like me making up a Japanese name.
Exactly.
Bus Simulator comes to PS4. Our bus, your route, your schedule. It's your bus, your route, your schedule. I just forgot to put the Y in there. Whether in the industrial or harbor zone with a U, so this is British, unfortunately. Downtown and the surrounding villages or the business park, experience the exciting everyday life of a bus driver in a vast and freely drivable urban area. So what are you waiting for? Your shift has already started. I got to be honest, Chris. That sounds strangely intriguing to me. The bus simulator.
You're just strangely interested in simulators in general.
You
have a strange fascination with them.
Yeah, they're
which I don't not understand.
Yeah, well,
but
look around.
Castle Crashers Remastered comes to PS4.
Hey.
Hack, slash, and smash your way to victory in this remastered edition of the popular 2D arcade adventure game from the behemoth. At 60 frames per second, Castle Crashers Remastered delivers high-res visuals like nothing you've ever seen before. Up to 4 friends can play locally or online and save your princess, defend your kingdom, and crash some castles.
Classic game.
Such a good game, man.
Excellent game.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. My brother's coming in a couple of days to record Knockback, so I assume we'll get some couch co-op going on that.
Oh, without a doubt.
Gnome's Garden Lost King comes to PS4. This is the one you've all been waiting for. The princess of our fairy tale kingdom grew up and got married long ago. But one day, her beloved husband went hunting and didn't come back. Where did he go? Gnome's Garden is a fun fantasy strategy game about a world of gnomes. Save the king and return prosperity to the kingdom. Now, I want to just throw in here real quick. It sounds like maybe this is like one of those I'm going to 7-Eleven to get cigarettes and milk and then never coming back situation. It's like he went hunting one day and never came back. Where did he go? What do you think? He wanted to get away from you. He's fine. He lives in Seattle with his girlfriend. Yeah. Okay?
And they're having a great time. Groundhog Day, like father, like son, comes to PSVR.
This is the second Groundhog Day game on PSVR, by the way. I
thought this was the one that was like that we talked about.
This is a sequel.
Okay. I don't even know how to process that one.
Well,
you're stuck in a time loop as Phil Connors Jr. back in Puxatawny for Groundhog Day in this virtual reality sequel to the iconic hit movie. Don't worry, Ned will show you the way, but watch that first step. It's a doozy. So why don't you stay here a while?
You know what? You might be right. This might be the one we were talking about. I thought this was the second one. I thought that one already came out.
No. I think we mentioned it. I think it was like in the news or like some wrap up that we did previously.
That's not nearly as funny then.
No.
Because I was like, wow, that was such a big hit. They did another one.
That'd be kind of ironic if they released the same game again.
It's Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Inferno 2 comes to PS4. The ultimate twin-stick action RPG shooter is here. The sequel to Inferno Plus, Radian Games' critically acclaimed twin-stick action RPG. Inferno 2 boasts even more devious levels, more weapons, more upgrades and powers, more enemies, and more customization, along with more insane explosions and particle effects.
Lost Castle comes to PS4. The world's favorite dungeon-crawling roguelike Lost Castle is finally here with this impressive PS4 edition. Running at 60 FPS, including all content available elsewhere, play with up to 4 friends online or offline and experience an adventure enjoyed by 1.5 million players worldwide.
Wow.
Whoa.
Masira comes to PS4. Masira is a story-driven puzzle-adventure game with a low-poly style where you will experience an unforgettable adventure in the shoes of a girl and her grandmother who make a trip from Syria to Europe, all seen through the eyes of the little one. That sounds somewhat interesting.
Mowin' and Throwin' comes to PS4, a perfect addition to your party game library. Use lawn gnomes to mow your yard and throw things to keep your neighbors from beating you. Play as lawn gnomes and wreck your neighbor's yard by throwing rocks, fertilizer bags, and psychedelic mushrooms. Surprisingly fun.
Interesting.
That is a great write-up. Don't know what the hell that is, but that sounds something that I'm definitely going to Google.
I'm concerned, though, because by destroying your neighbor's house, you're ruining the value of your own house and your own yard. It doesn't really make any sense.
It's more of a battlefield in their eyes.
I see. Mutazione How do you think you say that? Mutazion.
Whatever. I'm not even going to.
All right. Comes to PS4. A mutant soap opera where small-town gossip meets the supernatural. Join Kai as she arrives in the mysterious community of Mutazion to care for her ailing grandfather. Discover scenic hangouts, magical gardens, new friends, and old secrets. They can survive an apocalyptic meteor strike, but can they survive their small-town drama? I don't know. I can't even say your name of your game.
Ninokuni, Wrath of the White Witch. The White Witch Remastered. Comes to PS4. Journey back to the other world in Ninokuni, Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. Level 5's classic tale returns with improved graphics and performance. Join Oliver as he embarks on an adventure through a world inhabited by new friends and ferocious foes alike in the hopes of bringing back his mother after a tragic incident. So this is a remaster of the first one, I assume.
Yeah, excellent game. One of PS3's very, very, very best games. Highly recommended.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You don't need to put the name of the game in the write-up.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
We know what the game is.
I agree. It's a little redundant, isn't it?
It's getting annoying.
Niflheim comes to PS4. Survive in this hostile world. Ransack the neighbor lands, explore dangerous dungeons, and find your way to Valhalla. Warriors remain warriors even after death. Set out on the path to the last challenge and prove yourself to the gods. Crush anyone who dares to attack your lands. Each fallen enemy brings you closer to Asgard.
Overland comes to PS4. Take care of travelers on a post-apocalyptic road trip across the U.S. in this turn-based survival game. Fight scary creatures, rescue stranded survivors, and scavenge for supplies. Just remember, there are consequences for every action. Get ready for dramatic escapes, hard choices, arguing about whether or not that dog gets rescued.
Oh, no.
Oh, and the end of the world.
I'm most concerned about the dog and if he gets rescued. I got to be honest, a lot of these games are just starting to blur together to me. Wasn't there a game called Oregon Trail that was just like this not too long ago?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Oregon, by the way. Oregon, O-R-G-A-N, Oregon Trail. Rebel Cops comes to PS4. This one looks cool. Lead a ragtag squad of cops in rebellion against their town's new criminal power and see how long you can hold out in this unforgiving turn-based spin-off game from This Is the Police. You'll be desperately short on supplies and a single shot can cost a cop his life. That's not going to be a very popular game with Antifa.
Yeah, definitely not.
No, they're not going to like that game very much.
Sayonara Wild Hearts comes to PS4. Sayonara Wild Hearts is a dreamy arcade game about riding motorcycles, skateboarding, dance battling, shooting lasers, wielding swords. I love saying it like that. Swords. And breaking hearts at 200 miles per hour. As the heart of a young woman breaks, the balance of the universe is disturbed. Let's pop.
All right. Fair enough.
That's what was written there.
Scheming Through the Zombie Apocalypse, The Beginning comes to PS4. Scheming Through the Zombie Apocalypse, The Beginning, there you go.
Jesus Christ.
Is the first episode in an episodic adventure game. Help Hank and Larry find food and loot to survive through the harsh zombie-infested streets by convincing other animals to do the work for you. Featuring fully voiced dialogue, experience a funny adult-themed zombie apocalypse story. That's what we need is more zombies. So.
Yeah. The Sojourn comes to PS4. Traverse a thought-provoking puzzle game in its immersive, color-drenched world of light and shadow. The Sojourn takes place in a mysterious land where lights guide you forward and the world reveals itself to be full of challenges. Overcome these intricate and ever more demanding obstacles to uncover the nature of reality.
Whoa.
Don't know what any of that means.
Sounds deep. Truck Driver comes to PS4. Build your career as a truck driver, haul a wide range of cargo, and make a name for yourself amongst the local community. Start from the bottom, take on jobs, buy new trucks and parts, and become a respected truck driver. And by the way, truck driver, when you become a respected truck driver, is capitalized, proper noun.
Witching Tower VR comes to PSVR. Immerse yourself in the dark fantasy world of the Witching Tower, a VR action adventure in which you solve puzzles, fight enemies, and uncover secrets. Explore the labyrinth of the tower, unraveling each level's new mysteries and unique gameplay mechanics. And that's all of them.
That's it.
That's all the games.
That's not too many this week, but obviously we want to recommend Castle Crashers Remastered. We've not played this version of it, but I can't imagine it's not great. And also Ninokuni, want to throw that out there. Obviously Ninokuni.
I like the way Gnome's Garden sounds.
Gnome's Garden, if you don't care about the value of your property, go and play that and enjoy yourself. Chris, before we get into the questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience, I wanted to say this at the top, but I forgot. But I wanted to throw this out there. I tweeted out, so I had skin cancer in 2011 for people that don't know. Mm-hmm. Not the bad kind, the good kind. I think it's, what do they call that? What do they call it? What's the good kind of cancer?
Benign?
No, benign. I actually said that to to my doctor where she was like, no, cancer can't be benign, but because you're talking about the good and
I
bad.
guess
It's
so,
like basal cell carcinoma or something like that. Whatever it's called. And so it's not dangerous as long as you get it taken care of, and I got it taken care of. But my nose started bleeding. Not my nose like out of the bottom of my nose, but like out of my pores on my nose started where my scar is started bleeding recently.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, what the fuck? Now, I got this removed in late 2011, the cancer. So I went to the dermatologist, and they cut a bunch of pieces of my skin off my face, as you can see, to send them in. They think it's back. We don't know yet for sure. But I wanted to use this as an opportunity to just tell people, you got to go to the doctor. Got to take care of things. Don't put things off. Because when that started, that was not the first time that my nose started bleeding. It was like the second time that I actually was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I could have probably gotten this taken care of a while ago. So I just wanted to use me yet again as an example of just going and taking care of your business if you have the means and the opportunity to do so. Don't put these things off because you never know. Now, I can come back clean, but I had multiple doctors in my face telling me that it looks like it came back. So we'll find out for sure when they get the results back. But I just wanted to use that as an opportunity. If you have something bothering you, you know, if you're a man and you feel a lump in your testicles, or you're a woman and feel a lump in your breast, or you know, you're feeling feverishly, you gotta just, you know, I'm in the mindset too that like things solve themselves typically, but you know, just be careful out there. Just wanted to use me as a reminder to you to take care of yourselves, and I'll keep you up to date on if I'm gonna live or die. We'll find out. We'll find out real soon. Okay.
Jeez.
Chris, 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience. What we were talking about, what would happen if we died and someone else had to take over the show? You might have to think about that sooner rather than later.
It.
Travis Powell wrote into us and said, hey, Como Momo and Twig Twag.
Oh, what?
Do either of you have an opinion on the Katamari Damacy franchise? I got into the first 2 games a few years ago, and I love them both to pieces. I know the first game recently got a remaster, but I'd love the same treatment for the second game or even a new one. What do you think? Thanks, and never forget that if you salt your eggs 15 minutes before you make them, they'll come out far more tasty and tender. I don't know if I believe that, and I don't know what that means. That sounds British to me. Katamari Damacy, are you a fan of this series?
Yeah, I think they're fun. Little guy. I got it on. I have one of them on Switch. Whatever one of them is on Switch, I have that one, and it's definitely a fun game to play on, like a trip, or you know, on a bus or on a train or whatever. It's a nice little mini game kind of game.
Yeah, for people that don't know, the original one came to PS2 in 2004, and basically you play as like an orb or a ball that's rolling around collecting bigger and bigger objects. It's just a crazy like arcade action game.
It's just I
don't even really know how to describe it.
It's very Japanese. Yeah. Very you play as like I think you play as like a little pill-headed man.
Yeah,
and
right.
You roll, and you roll this orb, and you start collecting people, and the goal is to just get the orb as big as possible. And you just like slowly like start rolling up and collecting dogs and like people eventually, and like cars, and it gets crazy.
It comes from the zany PS2 era, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Where we got like Mr. Mosquito and all these random ass games. But I think that I like Chris said, they did re-release it recently on Switch and other platforms. One of them, and there's one on Vita that came out around launch too. But I haven't seen too much from the franchise since then. And so, yeah, I think we feel positively about it. Namco, Bandai Namco now is the publisher, in case you guys are curious and want to go find it. Tyler Clark wrote into us, Chris, and said, do you have a routine for playing games? Or is it just a spur of the moment thing? Do you block out a part of your day and dedicate it to games? Just curious about your game playing habits. Chris, you and I have a bit of a different take on this, I think, because you and I don't have normal jobs. So
yeah.
I don't have to like, when I used to have a normal job, I would like dream about playing games and like carve that out. But I'm not so much like that anymore.
Yeah, it's actually kind of hard for me to just sit and play a game because I'm always thinking about like, oh, I should be working, you know, because I work where I play my games, which is like the worst shit ever. Just that separation I feel like that separation needs to exist, like to go to work. Like it's just like so inherent.
It's important.
Yeah.
And I don't have that.
Yeah, but like anytime I'm playing like a game, like typically, unless I'm really looking forward to it, if it's something that has just come out that I'm like, oh, maybe I'll play this, I'll always have this thing in the back of my head like, you should be working. What the hell are you doing? So I can really only manage to play a game and like sit and dedicate time to it if I know that I've done what I need to do for the day already. Like if I've got enough work done, it's like, okay, I can justify like maybe several hours of this and then I'm fine. But that's typically how it works. I just have to work a lot beforehand and then I feel all right with it. I'm fairly similar to you in the sense that I'm so OCD that I have a hard time. I like jumping around from thing to thing. I think people that follow me on PSN will notice that I have my PS4 on all the time and the games are often paused. And because like I'll play a game for a little while, then I'm gonna go do laundry and like I'll just leave it paused for like 4 hours and then I'll go back to it and keep playing it again, which is why I hate when games play music in pause menus or don't stop their time and stuff like that.
during pause menus, but I don't plan it out too much, except for the fact that I really typically like to play games at night and in the middle of the night. I don't typically play my games in the middle of the day, and that's just always been my style, I think. Once the sun goes down, and all bets are off, in fact. You never
I feel
know
like I do a lot of my work when the sun goes down. And then in the day, I play video games.
I do a lot of my work when the sun goes down, too. You know what I mean? Anthony Gigi wrote into us and said, hello, Mr. Moriarty and Mr. Raygun. I just so happened to glance at your trophy collection on PSN profiles and noticed you are at almost 100 platinums. 89, in fact. Do you have a game plan for Platinum 100? Perhaps The Last of Us. I remember you saying The Last of Us was the only 10 you ever gave to a game. It is. And maybe it deserves the greatest honor of being your 100th Platinum as well. After all, it can't all be for nothing. Well, that's a quote from the game, Chris.
It is.
No, I don't like this idea of ordering my trophies. Remember, we had a writer last week note that he was avoiding getting platinums so he can platinum The Last of Us Part 2 as his 100th. And I'm like, that's really going to be annoying as shit for you. You know, so don't let trophies ruin your gaming to that extent. I mean, you can let them ruin your gaming a little bit. Like they ruined my gaming a little bit, right? But don't let them ruin your shit to that extent. I don't agree with that. So
I was happy that my first one was Spider-Man.
That's pretty cool.
I was pretty happy about that one.
It's pretty cool to have a milestone, right? But I'm not really paying attention. I just want good platinums. And if I can go back and delete 10 or 15 platinums I had, I would delete them. So, because I just want platinums for games, not necessarily easy or hard, but just games that I really enjoyed. And, you know, I have Cloudy with a Chance at Meatballs up in there, and I have Up in there and stuff. I don't know that I need those.
Back when they were making those.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're going to have Ice Age as well, the Ice Age.
Oh, thank goodness.
So I have an Ice Age Platinum as well. That also did happen. James Sprules wrote into us, Chris. He said, hello, C-Squared. When is the critical mass for games as a live service or persistent online multiplayer going to be reached? Currently, it seems there's Fortnite, PUBG, Destiny, Monster Hunter, Battlefield, Call of Duty, Realm Royale, Rocket League, etc., with Remnant from the Ashes and Borderlands 3 currently added in the last month or so, and there's more to come. Surely all these games can't be profitable, and with so many now coming out, it's bound to get worse. Thoughts? We were talking about this a little bit with Borderlands 3. I am quite concerned about the health of many of these games. I don't know that there's much more we can add.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there are still a lot of markets that have yet to be really tapped into is also something that we should take into account. So I don't know if there's necessarily... I don't know if these games aren't profitable. They clearly are.
Those games that he mentioned are, but there's certainly competitors that aren't.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't know necessarily if The Division is competing with Destiny in the same way that Call of Duty competes with Battlefield. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that it's necessarily... I think people are looking a bit too deep as far as what is competing with what. They're all competing for your time, obviously, but somebody who loves The Division probably not going to love Destiny. And somebody who loves Destiny probably not going to like The Division. I really don't see that cross. Because they're such vastly different styles of video game. Like, even down to just the setting and the genre. The only thing they have in common is the fact that they persist. And surely there's like a limited time that everybody has. Obviously, nobody has an infinite amount of time to dedicate to everything. But I don't necessarily think they're competing on as much of a front as we necessarily think they are. Otherwise, I feel like we would have seen a lot of them fall.
Right.
Well before any of this.
But is it possible? See, you were talking about reaching too deep and thinking too hard about it. Maybe I am. But we have some interesting data, right? Like I said, 20-year games low of sales in the United States. That doesn't mean, by the way, money's made. That's just game sales, right?
Right. No, it's not that necessarily. I think more on the sense of that we're looking at live service as a genre and that they're like competing. Yeah. And it's like they are, but it's kind of like saying third-person game. Is Gears of War competing with Death Stranding? No, I don't really think so at all. And I think that's kind of where people are thinking of it from. And it's like, I don't know if that necessarily applies as well as you think it does.
The pie of time is much more important to me than the monies, too.
Right, yeah.
Because I think that's much more relevant. I think that is a problem. But Chris is right that if the base of gamer expands, there are 7 billion people on the planet. If you can get a bunch of people, billions of people playing games, then whatever that might be, it could be a Facebook game. They're all kind of count. I understand. We've talked about this in the past about how like 43% of gamers are women. Like, no, they're not. But I understand that if they count everything, then in this holistic way, then that statistic is accurate. So with emerging markets, China, one of the ones that's really coming out now and actually making games that they're exporting, which is huge, and they're investing. Tencent obviously now invested in Bungie. So there's a lot of different crossed wires where I think that this can work out in any number of ways, but I look at the NPD and I see just a bit of a harbinger, especially with Control. I feel like a game like Control, regardless of who published it and how much ad revenue was behind it, would have sold better a few years ago than it did now, because I think people are more distracted. And if you look at a game like Control and it's $60 and you're really just obsessed with Fortnite, then you don't go buy Control. You simply play Fortnite.
No,
I think it's a problem. I mean, I don't want to say it. It's not a problem per se, but it's a problem if you care about the games I care about.
I think that's true. Yeah, I agree with that.
We'll see what happens, though, because I'm not even sure all the games he mentioned, if you go fast forward 2 or 3 years, will even be able to exist in this marketplace. Like, I think that we're seeing something fascinating where, like the NFL or something, where it's like professional football, like that's professional football. Yeah, there is the CFL and these other fringe leagues, but no one really cares about them. And yeah, maybe people go to those games, but the NFL sucks all the oxygen up, right? And so something similar might be happening here. And that's not necessarily good for the game of football any more than that's necessarily good for a video game. So I don't know. I think we have to just wait and see how it all goes. But I understand the consternation and concern some people have over this.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Let's see here. Nimbus wrote into us and said, "Good day, CNC. With Days Gone's latest patch, I have to wonder, why is New Game Plus so often added months later these days? I may be young, but even I am old enough to remember a time when New Game Plus being in the game was expected, not something to be thrown in half a year after everyone has stopped caring about the game. I remember my first access to New Game Plus was in Chrono Trigger. That was in the mid-90s on Super Nintendo. That was the first time I remember even seeing that term. And now obviously this is a ubiquitous term. I agree, though. We were talking earlier about Control's DLC coming later. They're adding a New Game Plus. At the very least, Chris, I think New Game Plus should just be baked into the game, version 1.0. Why not? Like, why not immediately give someone... This is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, why let time expand? If Days Gone's New Game Plus happened immediately, I might have jumped back in and played a little bit more, but I'm never going to play Days Gone again, probably ever.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't even know why it's necessarily all that difficult. Like, who cares about the balance of New Game Plus? Surely it's just about, like, I like this game, I finished it, I got all my shit, let me go back to the beginning and do clean house. You know, it's just New Game Plus is like a power fantasy. That's what it is. Like, I want to fly around at the beginning of Control. Why can't I do that?
Right. Yeah, it breaks quests and does all this kind of stuff, which I understand requires a little bit more QA, but
you've already done it. You've already finished the game. You know what I mean? Like, you've already completed the story. You've already seen what the game wants to show you. Why not just let the person at the end use all the shit that they've accumulated and just have fun with the map and the combat? It's weird that that's a thing that's added later when it seems like it... Maybe I'm ignorant here, but it seems like something that could be very easily implemented.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a flip of a switch, but I think, to your point, I think it's not that difficult. And unfortunately, the pessimist in me says this is just another way for them to get a PR pop out of the game.
I mean, probably.
They're not selling it, and I think that would be ridiculous if you sold New Game Plus. That would be insulting. But I think it's a way for them to write a PlayStation blog post 2 months after the game comes out and says, hey, by the way, now you remember Days Gone? Well, the New Game Plus now.
It is free advertising in a way.
I think that PR is getting way too involved in the process of game creation and the way the games are launched. And I don't mean PR people. I mean just the optics of public relations and the way that your game interfaces with the world. I think it's a negative thing when the game's not packed with the content that should be there. And on the other side of the coin, as we mentioned earlier, I think it's okay to have day one DLC and things that are ready to go for the really eager player, or month one, whatever the DLC. But yeah, New Game Plus should be standard, just like it used to be. And I agree with Chris. Even if it breaks the game, which it does, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Finally, Chris, Mike Childs wrote into us and said, hey, CNC. First of all, happy anniversary to this magnificent podcast. Is it our anniversary? No, our anniversary was a long time ago. I don't know. What dimension did you write this from?
What?
Mike? Because we started the podcast in July, it's September. But we appreciate it nonetheless. Yeah. I'm happy I can finally be a supporter after a year of not being able to. Well, welcome, Mike. Second of all, with all the subscription-based services like PS Now, Xbox Game Pass, and EA Access, do you think they remove some incentive to buy a game at launch if it'll just come to a service a couple of months later? For example, Metro Exodus just came out in February and then came to Game Pass right after E3. Thank you and keep making Tuesdays great. We will. We've talked about this a little bit in terms of the finances of combining these things. Should there be like some sort of cartel basically that does all of that? You know what I mean? Like everyone gets together and does this in one pass, which I think is kind of a nice idea. It might be a little anti-consumer, but I actually think it would be quite convenient. But I think we talked about this with Gears. I think it is convincing people not to buy games. The question is, what do the when everything's wrung out at the end, what do the finances show? Because if I don't think Microsoft would give a flying fuck if no one bought Gears of War 5 if they had more money at the end of the year because of Gears of War 5. So those are two different things. And I don't know. I really feel like we have to start judging things based on not games sold and not monies made, but players. This is what Chris was bringing about earlier with Gears. Well, that 3 million players thing is a big deal, but I didn't really see that anywhere.
Well, this is Fortnite. It's Fortnite. How many players does that have, and how much money do people spend on it, even though it's free? It's like this is the way things are going now. And I think, honestly, I don't know if I necessarily mind that. I don't mind if I can pay $10 a month or something, or however much Game Pass is. I don't even really pay attention. And get access to a game for very little money that's then bolstered up by a community that's like has a consistently high player count because it's so widely available, that is then having people in that community spending a lot of money on the free shit or like the skins because they feel like it, and letting the rest of us just kind of play the game that we want to play. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I
wonder how that will affect the industry at large over time, but it's interesting, and people are going to have to start really reevaluating the way that they count a lot of these things, and even just the way a lot of games are developed. I think it's going to impact a lot of things.
The Gambit's interesting because EA, like we said earlier, is doing this Gambit with Anthem, and it's a last-ditch effort to try to get people to play it. And I understand that, although I did make the argument that if it's the 5th best-selling game in the United States, typically probably it's sold well in other territories, they might be happy. I know it's a weird thing, but like not having to support the game long-term, you kind of made your money up front. So maybe but again, we've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, that they can't really abandon it. But I agree with you. I think we're just going to have a different market with different kinds of markers about what signifies a popular game or a profitable game from another. And I don't think MPD and sales charts are really going to tell the tale anymore. I think once Sony, which probably they will do with PS5, once they have their own Game Pass type system, I think we're going to see that infiltrate the PlayStation ecosystem too. And then we're going to have concerns that games aren't selling as well as they used to, and they won't be. But again, it's like what shows on the ledger at the end. That's all they care about. And I do think that if it's $9.99 a month or whatever, $120 a year, they're probably perfectly happy getting that money from you, from 25 million people. And then
some percentage of those people are then pumping more money into the game than they ever would have spent just buying the game.
Exactly. You kind of you manufacture whales, I think, by doing this. Plus, there's a cost up front, so it's a little different than Fortnite, where like there actually is a cost up front. Then you spend money on the game, so there's a way forward, and I think Microsoft is pioneering something really special here.
I would not be surprised if Gears 5 sold abysmally, but made an insane amount of money. That would not surprise me at all.
Could be a similar thing, maybe not with Crackdown because it was in development for so long, but you could have a similar story with Crackdown and these other games that people kind of forgot about already because you just don't have numbers, and Microsoft refuses to talk numbers, and I don't really blame them. But we don't even know how many Xbox Ones have been sold. I don't know if people out there know that. We have no fucking idea how many Xbox Ones are in the wild. It's all predictions. They haven't mentioned one thing about sales since I worked at IGN. That's the last time that they announced anything about sales.
I would bet like around 40.
Yeah, I would think so. Probably, maybe even less. So, but it's like with the Vita. Like we have no idea how many Vitas sold. Some people are like 10 million. Some people are like 22 million. I'm like, I have no idea. How would I know? Stop asking me because I don't know. Why am I getting angry? I don't know why I'm getting angry. Chris, that's all I have for Sacred Symbols this week.
Alrighty.
I hope everyone out there enjoyed our episode. We appreciate you very much. Remember to support our show on Patreon, patreon.com/ColinsLastStand for early ad-free access, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to our show, access to Sacred Symbols Plus, which we're about to record for this week right after I hit stop. We're going to hit record again and go right into that. Instantaneously. No breaks, no pee breaks, no water breaks, no cell phone breaks, nothing. We're just going to go right into it. We appreciate you, though. We thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product of and a registered trademark of Colin's Last Stand, LLC, and is recorded right here in sunny Santa Monica, California, USA. This show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun. You can find me on Twitter at NoTaxation and on Instagram at CLS Moriarty. Chris is on Twitter at Chris R. Gunn and on Instagram at Chris_Ray_Gun. Sacred Symbols is edited by Dustin Furman. Any snail mail can be sent to the CLS P.O. Box, P.O. Box 1233, Santa Monica, California, 90406. To message the show online, please use Patreon's DM service. As you know, all of Colin's Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we are eternally grateful for your kindness, generosity, and fandom. Chris Adams, Carlos Algarit, Morgan Ashley, Taylor Barkley, Adam Barnes, Martin Beck, Tyler Bello, Eric Bishop, Mark Boggio, Andrew Bonnell, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Miguel Brewer, Lennon Brixey, Eric R. Brown, Jason Budnick, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Chris Buston, Nick C., Alex Cabrera, Nick Calloway, Patrick Harper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chan, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Jeremy Cochran, Rodney Coleman, Simon Conception, Brad Cooley, John Cordero, Gio Corsi, Nick Cottrell, Philip Crone, Daniel Diamore, Colin Davenport, Mitchell Durkash, Night Draft, David Ellis, Liam Fagan, Jerome Ferreira, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Chris Galvin, Connor Gashian, Alex Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem Al Ghanem, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Jonathan H., Eric Harden, Tyler Harris, Kyle Hagel, Shane Hendrickson, Wyatt Henry, Robbie Hensley, Asa Haas, Johnny Humphreys, Stephen Insler, Blake Israel, Azan Isa Al Ricey, Josh Yeager, Garrett Jagger, Joshua Jonathan, Paul Joyce, Greg Julius, Sharo Kadir Hama Kareem, Anton K., Patrick Kelly, Jeremy Key, Antti Kinnunen, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kittredge, Kenneth Kopnick, Joshua Koga, Andre Kozhatska, Ron Krauskopf, Jackson Lastiqua, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Matthew Lenz, Jeffrey Leonard, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Lou and Ray Loper, Colin Love, Josh M., Kiet Mai, Ryan T. Mandel, David Mann, Matt Martin, Michael Martinez, Sean Mason, Jordan Mouse, Zachariah McAdoo, John McCarthy, Josh McKinney, Joe McPartlin, Philip J. Melk, Andrew Mendoza, Matthew Miller, Alex Mones, Chris Moore, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Ryan Murdoch, Adam Nix, Donnie Nolan, George Anthony Nunez, Brian Ott, Jesse Owen, Jorge Palomino, Andrew Parker, Daniel Parsons, Marius S. Peterson, Gerald Pennington, Matthew Perdue, Enrique Perez, Jason Pettit, Travis Plimal, Jeff Pollard, Louis Powell, Lawrence F. Prokop, Nathan R., Ryan Reeves, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Shane Rayum, Jonathan Rice, Mark Richardson, Daniel Rivas, Petro Rose, Jose Salinas, John Scholes, Michael Shanholtz, Toby Shootman, Alex Shute, Glendon Cole Simper, Joshua Smallwood, Daniel Strycharsk, Ahmad Tamar, Will Thielander, Ben Thompson, Ren Todd, Carl Tolman, Alan Tremblay, Raymond Vargas, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Troy Walters, Connor Walton, Isaac Wastman, Damon Weathers, Mike Wayne, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Bloody Fang, Hugo's Desk, Casual Misfits Gaming, Homeworld Hub, Throw 7, McDog 18, Infinite, Organic Produce, Mad Mock Media, Fabian, Not Your Real Dad, Mubarak, Richter 86, Andrew, Ian, Chris, Dav 9834, Scott, Rainick, and Donk 2015. Let's see what else we have here. Dorian Brown wrote into us, Chris. He said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, just a while back, you guys were commenting on how games in general needed to be more advanced to this point and kill the." What are you saying here? Cut this out, Dustin.
Needed to be more than advanced to this point and kill this thing.
All right, we're just not reading that. Fucking illiterate. You put this at the end of the podcast if you want.